Hey guys, welcome back. It's good to have you back. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. Thank you for tuning in and supporting me in this regard and essentially supporting yourself and whatever journey you might be on, whatever it is you might be struggling with. And I can imagine it's probably what you have seen this particular installment to be about, which is bulimia. That's a heavy word. And if you're tuning in for the first time, my name is Chinisani and you're welcome. I know this is a very heavy topic, and quite frankly, that's one of the reasons why I started this channel and why I wanted to, delve into such rarities that we don't talk about in society. So, yeah, let's jump in. So, just to start off, I will try and explain bulimia. I'm not going to try and use my own definition, that will probably come later when I explain my interaction with it, my experience with it. So, I literally just Googled this and it hit a spot for me because that is exactly what I experienced. And it basically explains bulimia as an eating disorder, as we might all be familiar with. I can only imagine if you're tuning on, you have experienced it in one way, shape, or form, be it directly, be it a family member or a friend who has gone through such an ordeal. So it's an eating disorder in which a person basically has regular episodes of eating a large or a huge amount of food only to then purge or vomit. And that vomiting is usually self induced. Yeah. That doesn't sound okay. That doesn't sound healthy at all. And I went through that. The first time I experienced it or did that to myself, I would have been 12 years old. I remember because that was the day or a couple of hours after I found out that my dad had passed away. In my previous installment, I basically mentioned my dad's passing, but I didn't get into details. One of the things I experienced, or rather didn't experience, when I learned of my dad's passing was I didn't cry. It wasn't a conscious thing. I didn't set out to not cry or be this, strong person who is not going to be moved by the passing of their father. I literally couldn't. And it's not something I could make sense of until later in life when I realized, I don't think that was okay. I don't think I dealt with that as would have been expected of the next person, let alone the people I was with, my mom, my brothers. They reacted differently. So, yeah, so that night when everyone had gone to sleep, I basically went into the kitchen and I hadn't finished my dinner and there were leftovers. So I finished my dinner, and this was not just a normal kind of eating. I literally shoved the food down my throat, barely chewed it, and basically just swallowed it whole. And one other thing is I want it to be done in a matter of seconds. And then starting to do that, I felt a rush of emotion. But within a matter of seconds, it had subsided. And the only thing I could focus on was one spoon after the next. And I realized that in doing that, it quietened so many emotions that I was going through. So I just kept at it. But funny enough, even in doing so, I also realized I was anxious, I was aggressive in a way I hadn't experienced before. So out of nowhere, I just went on and got more food in the fridge. The leftovers that were probably meant for lunch or whatever else the following day. I started eating that, and usually at that stage in my life, I was one of the people in the household who would bake and predominantly cook. I had baked some bread, took it out, and took out a drink and just started eating and eating and eating and eating. And my stomach started hurting, my throat got blocked, but I wouldn't stop. So I just went on and on and on and on. And I'm not sure what stopped me. I think it was the pangs in my stomach. And I remember thinking, this is probably going to make me gain a lot of weight. I can't go to sleep like this. So I went back into the bathroom and I stuck my two fingers, these very fingers, down my throat as far back as I could until the wrist part of my hand was blocking my mouth. It didn't take long before everything started coming out. And I don't know, I felt like I was for the first time in control of something. You know, I I didn't stop until each purge, each time something came out, some of the particles were still whole. The rice was still whole. The bread, I could tell that is literally bread. The drink, I could tell that is literally a drink. And it had me thinking, I know exactly what I ate. So I am going to do this until it is all out. So I was just over that sink for I don't even know how long. And I also was conscious of the fact that I had to be discreet about it because everyone else was asleep and I could not take the chance of their realizing I was doing something, let alone whatever that was. Because at the time, I didn't even have a definition for it. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that it was making me feel better. I just knew that it was n- numbing the pain. And all these I realized in looking back and realizing, this is what was happening. So I carried on, and at some point, only saliva started coming out. And I could feel my back hurting in a way that I had never experienced. Every time I would puke, my back would straighten and um, hurt in a way that I had never experienced. But I didn't stop. I just carried forward. And when I realized there was nothing else coming out, and I was satisfied, I guess, with the fact that my stomach was now empty because I could actually feel just how empty it was. I washed my hands, cleaned the sink, and went back to sleep. Well, went back to bed. In getting in bed, I remember thinking, wow, that was good. It was one of the few times that I felt something in my life where I felt, like I said, like I was in control, like, I could do something and not have anyone, any form of authority over me, be it my mom or my brothers, that this was my thing. It made me happy in a very weird way. I knew I probably should have not done that, but I couldn't help but think how amazing it made me feel, how whole it made me feel, how in control it made me feel. So I went to sleep happy for the first time in a long time, really. And then at that time in my life, I was the first person to wake up. So I woke up and I just remember thinking, this is going to be a good day. And that was such an alien feeling for me. I was usually on autopilot and didn't really have much control over what was happening around me in my life. But I remember thinking, this is going to be a good day. And as I went into the bathroom, I thought to myself, whatever happened to everything that went down that particular basin? So I immediately rushed outside the house, went towards the drain, or where the pipes actually spew things in, out rather. And there it was, my dinner and my bread and everything I had perished. And thankfully, there was a tap over there, so I opened it, cleaned it all the way down the drain, and no one was awake yet. It was cold, it was July, and I only realized how cold it was when I was done doing, like, washing it down the drain and having now to go back into the house. And yeah, I went in, took my bath, and I was basically off to school. It was the last day we would go back to school because we then had to travel for my dad's funeral, as I would have already mentioned. And at the time, I was doing standard 7, and we had our PSLE exams towards the end of the year, so we basically couldn't afford missing lessons or revisions. So we went back to school for half a day or so. And I wasn't sure what this feeling was, but I also remember thinking, shouldn't I be crying instead of being this happy? I wasn't. I wasn't crying. I wasn't hurting in the way I saw everyone else hurting around me. So it did somewhat make me feel guilty. It made me wonder, does this mean I didn't love my dad as much as the next person, given how they're reacting? And I'm just here. But this basically carried on. The bulimia carried on for quite a long time in my life. I struggled with it for a long time in my life. I'd never categorized myself as a person who had body dysmorphia, but I realized in doing that, that I actually did, that I had a problem with my body. And I had to reflect and try and realize later in life why it was that I reacted that way. Growing up, we were chubby kids. And I'm not sure about you, but when you are a chubby kid, you tend to be given nicknames like short put in my instance because I was chubby and I was short. And I remember one of my mom's colleagues, one of the times, telling me how it is that I needed to do something about my body as early as I can because at this rate, I wasn't going to look my best in life. And I was probably 10 years old or 11 years old. And I remember thinking, what? What does that mean? And this was around break time. I went home, looked at the food, and decided, okay, I'm not eating. I am not going to eat. That lady told me I need to lose some weight, so I'm not going to eat. And I also had a family member say something similar to me when I was probably 13 or 14. She said to me, you have this body at this age. How are you going to look after you have had kids? Guys, I was 13. You should have seen me. I honestly didn't have it in me to comprehend what she was saying, but I also knew what she was saying was not kind, was not nice. At 13, I'm being told, okay, about having kids and how I'm going to look. It crushed me. And I just remember thinking, okay, I have a solution. I have a solution. I'll eat and then remove the food rather. And this way I will not gain weight. This way I will stay, I'll have a nice body. And it made me hate my body. And it's sad to say that I was surrounded by cousins and, family members who were slimmer than me, particularly the on the girls' side of things. Majority of them were slim and beautiful, and I had instances where they would be complimented right in front of me, whereas I wouldn't be. Instances where people would tell them how beautiful they are, tell them how nice their bodies were, and I was right there, and nothing would be said to me. So you can only imagine how that made me feel as a child. It's not something I reflected upon. It, of course, in the moment it made me sad, but I didn't realize what it was doing to me psychologically. I didn't realize how damaging and damning it was for me to be called those names, for me not to experience, positive compliments about my body, but rather the total opposite, particularly from people who were close to me, people whose opinion mattered. So I carried on with the purging for quite a number of years, really. And whenever I was in a public environment where I knew I didn't have the opportunity to purge or to make myself puke, I would eat less. I would literally just take minutes chewing one bite. And this was basically a way of my controlling what came into my body and ensuring that it was as little as possible because it was going to be digested. In primary school, I played every sport you could think of: volleyball, netball. I was there. Um, Running, I was there. Believe it or not, I don't like running, but I was there. And I exerted myself in that regard because, I'm not sure if you at the time you were growing up, you basically came across magazines and read about how it is that exercise helps reduce weight, eating certain things can lead to weight gain. And looking back, I'm thinking perhaps that's where the bulimia came from. I can't remember a particular article that I read that spoke to bulimia, but perhaps that's where I got the concept and where I started adopting it as well. But in reading all that in the magazines, it affected my life as well. And I thought, I have a solution. I will not eat as much. I will not eat, junk. I will probably just have an apple. Or when I eat, and there's a clean bathroom, I will definitely ensure that I have removed everything. No one knew. No one knows. Even up to this day, it's not something I have talked to my mom about or my family about. And there's obviously an element of shame and being disappointed in myself for having gone through that. But I've gotten to a point where I know now that shame is the lowest emotion and most useless emotion you can ever feel. It doesn't help anything, it breaks you and literally destroys your whole being. So I'm basically here to try and read the shame in me, read hopefully the shame in you. If there's one thing I've realized is that it's that in life we go through certain stages, and to get through those stages or those phases, there are things that we do that we look back on and we are not proud of. But personally speaking, I don't know how else I would have survived that stage in my life had I not purged. And no, I am not validating it. I'm not making excuses for myself. But the truth of the matter is that is exactly what happened. That was my experience. And that is the only way I knew to get myself through the body dysmorphia, the negativity around me. And I did that. And I am grateful that I am on the other side of things. But I'm basically here to say you can overcome it too. And I'm sorry that you're going through it, that you find yourself not liking your body and wishing you looked differently from how you look. But I've realized that this very body that I hated carried me through everything. I owe everything I am to it. It is the temple of God. My relationship with my body has not always been an easy one rather, but I have come a very long way from hating it to accepting it and even looking at it in reverence and knowing that it is holy. It is the only body that I have, and it is the only body I will ever have. Just thinking about how much it is that I hurt it hurts. but it still carried me through. It still remained intact. All this to say, your body is beautiful. Your body is what it is, and it is the only one you will ever have. Treasure it, nurture it. There are so many modalities that we can use to express our emotions, our hurt and pain, or whatever it is we might be going through, particularly the negative emotions. I didn't know any better. I didn't know what to say, whom to say it to, when to say it. But perhaps I can be your voice. Perhaps I can articulate that which you are going through. I know it's painful. You know, for a person to exert that much pain on themselves, they have to be going through just as much pain, if not more. And that was the same for me. I was going through so much pain. I didn't know it, or I didn't want to admit it. I just wanted to numb it. But numbing it does nothing. It rather leads to your compounding on the pain that you already have relative to dealing with it. And dealing with it can look like a whole lot of things. It can look like talking to someone. Find someone that you trust. It can look like reading about it, journaling about it. Those are some of the things that ended up helping me. And the most fundamental thing was having to realize that this was not okay, that I deserved better, that my body deserved better treatment. It deserved love, and it deserved for me to preserve it. It took me a long time, and I'm here hoping that it won't take you a long time to realize it. And that sometimes the next person might not be so lucky. Some of these eating disorders can lead to our demise. I don't want that for you. There were instances where I would puke until I started seeing blood, where my back would arch in a way that I wasn't sure if it would come back and straighten properly. There were instances where I couldn't stop, and it hurt, and I couldn't tell anyone. There are better ways to deal with what you're going through. I'm here. You can talk to me. There are books to read. I'm here to listen because I realize that sometimes all it takes is for someone to listen to you, to listen to what you're going through. And I didn't have that, or rather, I didn't have someone doing this for me, like opening up that door for me to be able to articulate myself. I didn't even know that another person was going through it, but I'm here to tell you I went through it and I overcame. First and foremost, I don't even want you to go through it. But if you are, please stop. Please stop and look at yourself and think, what other body am I going to have but this one? Adopt something that is more sustainable, which is eating healthy portions, eating at the certain foods at the right time. And I learned from, there is a lady on YouTube. She's I think her name is the glucose goddess. I'll look for her details. I'll look for her channel. I'll link it such that you watch her. She basically recommends that when you have, if you don't want to gain weight or you want to control your glucose levels, you need to eat certain foods in a certain order. For instance, start eating your veggies before you can, eat the starches, the meats, the sugars, or drink a diluted spoon of apple cider vinegar, such things. But don't be so obsessed over those. Just eat healthy portions and eat healthy foods. You'll be fine. Just give yourself the time, give yourself the effort that you deserve. I know it's hard. I'm even still struggling with it right now, yet the last time I probably made myself puke was 10 years ago. I'd be lying if I said I don't think about it sometimes. That when I realize, my thighs are a bit thick, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is, but there's a quick solution here. Quick solutions don't work. They destroy more, but rather sustainable solutions are what I am trying to communicate. Something as simple as going for a walk. You know, if you have a dog, go for a walk with your dog, go to the park and spend some time with it. You'll be surprised just how much better that makes you feel. I nowadays during lunch, after eating, I actually go for a quick walk. It makes me feel so alive, seeing the trees, hearing the birds, and just seeing people. It makes me feel so much better. Whereas when I was still making myself puke, I spent majority of my time in the house. The only time I would leave was to go to school, to go to church, or when we had to visit family. But wherever I went, I spent my time in the house. I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want to interact with people. But there's something beautiful about community. I think as human beings, we are just wired for connection. We are wired to be with other people, to interact with them, and we are wired to see nature and interact with it and hear the birds and just let them sing and take it in. I know this might all seem futile to you. Trust me, it's been tried and tested. I have for a very long time been resorting to that, and it's been doing wonders for me. Or just talking to a friend, someone you can trust. I know we probably just met and you don't know me enough to trust me, and I hope going forward I can build that trust enough for you to come to me and talk to me about your struggles. We all have those. You're not the only one. And this is not necessarily to comfort you and make you feel better about yourself, but it's a fact. We all go through something. And I hope you can find solace in that. And I hope you don't feel like an alien because of what you're going through or inadequate in any way. You are more than enough, just as you are. The Bible even says, this being from Christ, he says, come just as you are. Yes, just as you are. Even after you've puked the previous night, just come as you are. He loves us as we are. And it took me a long time to realize that. I thought, I had to perfect myself. I had to, clean up my act before I can start going to church or start believing in myself, start having self-worth. But it starts exactly where we are. It starts with you looking in the mirror and smiling back at yourself. It starts there. Then you realize in walking out that other people also smile at you because the same energy is transferred. So, yeah, guys, that is my story and how I realized that I was bulimic. I went through that for a couple of years. I'm tempted to say just under 10 years. But slowly but surely, I started realizing there was nothing healthy about it. I started coming across articles that spoke to how some people actually passed away from such a disorder. And did I want that for myself? No. Do I want that for you? No. So I rather started exercising, started being just conscious of what I eat, eating more veggies, eating more fruits. It wasn't easy. I, I did it on my own, and I think that is what exacerbated the difficulty in quitting. I didn't know I had other options, but with time I learned about them and started executing them. And I can only encourage that you do the same. That instead of purging, just eat healthily, eat with family in a healthy environment. I know not all of us have that, but try to create one for yourself in your mind by going for a walk, by journaling. Journaling has been very important for me. I just pour out whatever negative feelings I have on paper, on my laptop, on my phone. They come whenever I have these feelings come up. I now know I just need an outlet. And I don't always have people to talk to. Actually, more often than not, I don't. And I don't even want to burden people with my struggles, with my troubles. So I just write it down. And there is something beautiful about that. It's as though you are releasing it. Try it. Let me know how you go. Let me know what your story is, what your interaction or experience has been where bulimia is concerned. Let me know how I can help. Comment, or you can go onto my Instagram and DM me. I am here for you. Wherever I can help, I'll help. If it means referring you to a person who is qualified, be it just talking about it, be it making recommendations, I'll do just that. But thank you so much for tuning in and for trusting me with such a delicate part of your life. If I had a magic wand, I would erase all those troubles that you're going through. But you know what I've realized? For me, with what I've experienced, they have been a blessing in disguise. I wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be able to articulate what I went through if I hadn't gone through that. But my having gone through it, personally speaking, it means you don't have to. So let's make sure you don't. Let's make sure you don't get to endure what I did. Thank you once again. My name is Chinesani and this is Healing. I hope we heal together. I hope we find a safe environment here and get to call it home. See you on the next one. Have a beautiful day wherever you are. Smile. Go out on that walk. You'll love it. Thank you guys. Bye.